Hello and welcome to On the Corner, the official podcast of pitcherlist.com. I'm your host, Eric Samulski, joined fresh off Tout Wars weekend and I believe a basketball championship. It's Nick Pollack.
What is happening? Yes, I won my basketball championship. I coach rec league 13, 14-year-old for 15 years here in Brooklyn. And I can't thank Doug Dennis enough for being my proxy the second half of my Tout Wars draft on Sunday morning. He did an excellent job, and there's a whole story about that with my 4-pixel font cheat sheet. I'll tell you another time.
Well, you say tell us another time, and you could tell us the story another time. But the idea of this particular episode is that people should not do their drafts without really hearing how your rankings have changed since they first were put out, how things have changed after spring training. And so I think sometimes the best barometer of that is our drafts. You and I just finished a TGFBI draft in the same league. And then we both just drafted Tout in separate leagues this weekend. And so before we get into the biggest risers and fallers on your list, now that you have done these drafts, has anything changed in terms of your general approach to drafting starting pitching? Is there a particular pitcher that you feel like on like a sweet spot where you're getting this guy a lot because the value is different? So not that the pitcher's stock has changed, which we'll get to later, but just has your strategy or your targets changed?
Yeah. So there are, there was a couple things from yesterday that I'm absolutely shocked that I'm a part of now. And one is, this was a draft too that I got Tyler Glasnow for $9, Shohei Ohtani the pitcher for $12, and it's an unlimited IL in a 12-teamer mixed. And if you know me, I am so in for this because Tyler Glasnow healthy is incredible, and I trust my ability to get replacement level elsewhere. And by the way, Doug Dennis did such a good job because he also got me Corbin Burns and Justin Steele. And if he did it, if this goes exactly to plan, the moment that Glasnow is hurt, one of those two will be ready. And obviously it's not going to work just like that, but I think it's a great combination having all of them. And Blake Snell went for $1, and I hated this because I already had the other two, and I couldn't do another. So props to Chris Towers for that one. But no, the one that I was so shocked by was Slade Ciccone for $4, Eric. And the thing about this, everyone goes, "Are you joking, Nick? How, you've been so anti-Slade Brigade with that stupid joke you make." Yeah. However, this was CBS points. If you know CBS points, it means that it highly values volume as opposed to K per walk, for example, or even actually earned runs. Just go through 6. If you do that, you're actually much further along than you think. And also Slade threw a cutter about 2% of the time, 2.5%. He threw it 34%, I want to say, in his last start. And it wasn't just like lefties or righties. Like he went ham into this pitch. It's 89 miles per hour. It's a good pitch. Okay, I'll take that at the end of this volume draft, right? And I find myself gravitating to that. And the other one is, I'm no surprise here. And again, thank you so much, Doug Dennis, for following my lead. Zach Eflin, unbelievable in this one. And I have found that nobody wants anything to do with Zach Eflin. And it's so easy. This is the Baltimore Orioles, where he's still a tick up in spring training, which is a great indication for a veteran. A veteran who is a tick up is not just ramping it up early in shortened stints. This is actually a guy who might actually hold on to that velocity in season. So those are the ones that right now have surprised me. At least I know from yesterday. I mean, sure, Eric, you're finding some guys as well.
Yeah, you and I have the same strategy in Tout Wars, obviously, with the unlimited IL. I took Justin Steele for, I believe, $2 for my Justin Steele.
Thank you.
For $2 for my final starting pitcher spot in the draft portion because, you can add people in the reserves. I also in the reserves added Jared Jones. And so having those guys hopefully come back in June or July will maybe offset some of the other injuries. Now, in a regular IL league with like 3 spots, I'm probably not drafting them. And I'm certainly not taking them in like an NFBC type format where there's no bench. I found myself with George Kirby for $17 in this league, which I thought was interesting because a lot of the quote unquote aces, sorry, not even the aces, like not the top 3 guys, but a lot of like the middle tier guys were going for like $22, $23, like, like the Freddie Peralta types or like Logan Gilbert. And I don't know that in my head there was like a $5 gap between Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. I got George Kirby and Cole Reagans at the top of my rotation. And so that was without having to spend a lot of money. And I kind of feel like I'm taking that general approach. I got Tetsuya Imai for $7 in Tout. I've gotten him as like my SP4 or 5 in a lot of redrafts where he's going, I have him ranked 31st and I don't have to draft him as the 31st starter. But, if I get starters early and then I wait to take him as my 4th starter, like I feel really good about that. I think he looks good. And so, those are guys that have been pretty consistent on across a lot of my rosters. Zach Eflin, like you as well. I'm waiting and taking Eflin a lot. I have found that I've gotten a lot of Noah Cameron as like my 6th starter, 7th starter, because he kind of gets forgotten about and he's in the rotation to start the year and he looked pretty good last year. And I don't have to get a repeat of last year for him to be valuable as my 6th or 7th starter. I could just, if he does come out of the gates looking like he did last year, then that's great. I can use him. He's easily one of my top 4 or 5 starters. And if he doesn't, then he gets churned for somebody who looks really good on the waiver wire. And, I'm not wasting a lot of money or wasting a cost there.
That's Noah Cameron, right? That you were just talking
about.
Yeah,
Noah Cameron.
And Noah Cameron is a command guy. He's not really impressing me massively in the spring as far as like new velocity or anything like that, but that's fine because he is a safe one and you can move on from him. I really like that one. With Amai, this is the whole thing about like the updates. So we've gotten more data on Amai. And my biggest thing early on with Amai is like, look, this guy from everything we know is a gamer. His head is at the right place. I actually, I've connected with Ian Khan. I love him. We talk a lot about the philosophy and the mentality of it. If you didn't know, Ian Khan, yes, the actor who played George Washington in the series John Adams, is one of the
Turn Washington's Spies.
Yes,
the series.
And he's also one of the more prolific fantasy baseball players these days in Tout Wars. He's a part of the new Tout Wars League of Champions. If you aren't aware of this, it was just announced this year. 12 famous Tout Wars winners, multiple winners, are now competing in a 12-team head-to-head daily transaction league. I'm so excited about it. It's a snake draft. It is a Tout Wars league that is the best of the best, playing the league that the most people play. Oh, we finally have that league, and I'm really stoked about it. But Ian Khan and I were talking about this, and with Amai, he's very much about like that guy, his head is in the right place. It is very much a mental thing. And this is why also Ian Khan was like in on CJ Abrams before his breakout, because he believed in him, right? So I want to be in. At the same time, the data doesn't love him. The four-seamer isn't as good as I necessarily want it to be. I mean, it is flat. It hasn't just been this unstoppable four-seamer.
Sure.
The slider is a reverse slider, and it's not a reverse in the sense that it is getting more horizontal than the four-seamer, but it is positive on the horizontal, which is a very strange thing to see from a slider. It's very positive, like 6 inches, which you just don't really see. And then you have the splitter, which is fine. But I wish I saw a more reliable slider and a more whiffable one from MI for me to really jump in. It's the only concern I have at the moment. However, I still consider him someone that if you get, you do hold him. So I just want to express that I've taken a small step back on MI. I could be very wrong on this, but from what I've seen so far, I'm not as sold as I want to be.
Yes, and we're going to talk about pitchers that we're taking steps forward on. I did just want to bring up just 2 news items of the day while we're talking about things that are changing. We know for sure now that Joe Musgrove is starting the year on the IL. That was a thought before. Most people had thought he was going to start the year healthy because he missed all of last year. He got surgery in October of 2024. The Padres are thinking more about August, September than they are about March and April with Musgrove. And so you need to determine if he's valuable enough to stash him on your IL for a while. I don't know that he is for me. And then there's just this uncertainty around Chase Burns. On Friday, he was stopped short. When he was throwing, they didn't love how his arm looked. He threw a bullpen Sunday, and they did like that. His plan is to pitch in the Cactus League again, but Terry Francona wouldn't say how many innings he's going to throw. He's not built up like their other starters are. Depending on how this Cactus League game goes, if he only goes 2 innings then or 3 innings then, he may start the year in the rotation, but not as a full-time starter. They may decide not to start him in the rotation because he means too much to them overall. I don't know that it is meaningfully impacting your ability to draft Chase Burns, like if he's not fully stretched out until the end of April. But it's just something to keep in mind that he is not necessarily in a spot to hit the ground running first start of the season.
So I messed up massively, Eric. So here's Tout Wars, which has starters, and you have 2 required relievers.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the cheat codes, in my view, is not getting a reliever in there, but actually getting SPARPs.
Sure.
And when I was looking into this, there's Ryan Nelson as a really good one, and the other one is Chase Burns.
Yeah.
So I remembered he went 2 innings, and thought I was going to be able to really kind of take advantage of that. And I overpaid for him, and he's now my reliever in Tout Wars with Rizal Iglesias. But that was a cheap one. Doug Dennis got him very cheap, very fine with that. But yeah, I gotta fix that. Here's the thing: Chase Burns' a skill set is amazing. So I already had him at 41 because there already was some injury risk.
Mm-hmm.
This is a second ding, and if I am drafting now, I'm probably not going to really do it because I do not like going after guys with Hayes entering the season, especially if he's going to be drafted within the top 40, 45 starters.
Which he for sure.
There are other ones you can go for. And I messed up. That's my Tout Wars. I take it. Okay. All right. I'm a better coach than a player. Let me tell you. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, it does concern me a lot with Chase Burns as much as I want him just to go out there and be dominant.
Yeah, it is tough. But hopefully we don't have to deal with it for the whole season. Hopefully he is, he winds up once he starts and he gets built back up, he hits the ground running and we're golden, but I don't really necessarily know how quickly that is going to go. So we're going to look at some of the biggest risers for you. I'm going to go kind of through the top 100, not in terms of all the tiers, but just the guys who bumped up the most in spring, and allow you to address kind of why they have bumped up the way they have. One of the first guys isn't bumped up a lot in terms of the most in terms of numbers. There are guys who have risen the most spots. But I thought it was interesting that you now have Bubba Chandler inside of your top 30, because that expresses a level of confidence in him that I don't know that you had when you did like the top 400 before.
So the thing with Bubba Chandler is that his fastball is amazing. It's 98. I actually got him. I got him in my league in the Petro Staff League, but he was my 5th starter. I said, okay, fine. I'll take him in the 12th round or so, right? And Bubba Chandler's fastball is amazing. It's an incredible foundation. I don't know how good the others are. Now, we were talking and chatting about this, I think, on the way to the Towers party.
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to be an amazing, overwhelming slider or changeup? And Jared Jones, absurd fastball. We know that, right? He still needed that slider to be amazing too. and it still was he had some issues here and there when he wasn't getting the same number of whiffs eventually on that four-seamer, right? So it does give me a little more hesitation than I used to. Also, the fact of we don't know the exact plan. It's not like Bubba Chandler just had a full season. Now we know he's going to get a every 5 days, 6 innings kind of deal. It should, but who knows? And those two things have me a little more concerned than I want to. It doesn't mean that I don't want him on my teams.
Right. I mean,
And
you have him
yeah.
inside your top 30 now. So like,
Right.
even though
So
those
like
things
it's this
concern
back
you,
and forth thing in my head of I think he's just a really good pitcher. And also I don't want to overlook that he does have those problems too. Look, when you look at the 30s, I think he has the best four-seamer. And that's really what steered me into that top 30. I think what I'm trying to express is the path to him being a top 10 kind of arm that you normally see with that kind of four-seamer requires more development than what we already have.
I get that. Another big jump near the top 30, but he finishes now at starting pitcher 32. Shota Imanaga is up 16 spots for you. Did anything change, or was this just kind of like remembering what his highs really are?
No, he's throwing harder. And it's kind of funny is I think he had the number one PLA or PLV four-seamer among every four-seamer thrown at least like 1,500 times last year, which is kind of awesome. Or at least among pitchers who threw at least 1,500 pitches or something like that. And Imanaga's fastball was down to like 90 miles per hour. And we were worried about his second half and don't know, and the Cubs didn't give him the contract or didn't sign back on again, all these things. And he's better than last year now. Like he's throwing harder. He wasn't throwing this way before. And he also got really unlucky. Put away rate is a really, really good indication of why a guy isn't getting the strikeouts he used to get. Is he losing in efficiency to a point that is unrealistic? That is an extreme. And yeah, Shota Imanaga's four-seamer and splitter and sweeper all took hits where they shouldn't in put away rates that does not suggest a 20% strikeout rate arm. Throw in the fact, of course, that increased velocity. It just all makes sense. Shota Imanaga is great. And he still had an amazing whip in that down year.
Yes.
And at a sub-4 ERA when his home run rate went up. I mean, he's a phenomenal pitcher. So I'm very much in on Shota.
Yep. I'm happy to hear that. I'm a little lower on him than you now based on the new rankings, but I keep thinking about like what he is like when he's fully on to write him off. So that makes sense. Another riser for you is Zack Wheeler, up 18 spots to 46. I assume this is because since your previous rankings, we have a little bit more of a sense of his timeline. It seems very likely that Wheeler will be on the mound before April is over. Now, we don't know fully what he's going to look like, right? Coming off of this thoracic outlet syndrome surgery, even though it was the quote unquote good kind. But the fact that we will get some form of Zack Wheeler before April is done feels like at some point you just have to take the chance.
Yeah, it is. Look, Eric is, I think, one of the biggest people in this industry that says, do not listen to the manager. They lie all the time. No, I've just constantly seen so much conversation coming from the Phillies not saying May, saying April. And every single week, it's just more, yes, it's this, that at the very least, I'm going to say Zack Wheeler pitches in the majors before Garrett Cole, before Carlos Rodon, right? And if that's the case, then I want him more than Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon. I understand the concern about mild TOS. What does that mean? What's going on? The fact that he's returning as fast as he is, I think, is already a good indication. And second of all, Zack Wheeler it's like a top 3 pitcher who's coming back from it. It's not, I would be floored. I think anyone would be floored if Zack Wheeler came back and it was like it was Strider's last season, right? like that it's just a outside of the top 60 starter when he does arrive. So you throw all those things in a bucket, and I said, all right, I'm not putting him inside my top 40. I am putting him right around that point of maybe droppable. Right. And I said, that's good enough for me. You know, I'll take the risk reward at this point. So Zack Wheeler around, I believe it's 47 or it's
46 right now.
46 now. Yeah, that makes all the sense in my mind of just risk reward balance. Do whatever you feel is right. If you feel you have a staff that needs that home run play, that would be it. If you have a staff that you just want to kind of keep getting good volume in April and you don't want to take those risks, not the kind of play you want.
Yeah. The next pitcher is one of the biggest risers you have on this entire list, but we will talk about him after this break. Up 22 spots to number 58 overall for you is Kodai Senga. What have you seen from Kodai Senga in spring training that is making you a little bit more of a believer than you were the last time you did the rankings?
Well, Eric, I think you can answer this one pretty easily.
I can, yeah. I mean, he's throwing, first of all, he's throwing 99. Touching 99, sitting good. 97. The velocity looks really good. We mentioned, we have said over and over again that the cutter is also crucial for him because he needs a fastball he can throw for strikes. The four-seamer is not a pitch he always commands. However, velocity has been pretty closely tied to Senga's success at the MLB level. The fact that he is sitting 97, not touching 97, is a really good barometer for his health and also a really good barometer for the overall success. Do I wish that he was throwing some more strikes in spring training? Sure. Some of the outings have been a little wilder than we'd like. However, you have him 58. I think I have him 51. When he was cruising the end of his first big league season, like the velocity was in the high 90s and the cutter was being dotted for strikes, he was like a top 25 starter, if not better. So putting him around 50 when the velocity is there, but we'd like to see more cutter command, just means if we actually see that command, there's even more upside. But I have Senga. He was another one I didn't want to talk about at the beginning of this show. We were talking about Tout because I knew we were going to mention it here. I think Senga is my most drafted starting pitcher right now. And it's just because when we started doing draft and holds in February, and then I did my first online championship draft at the end of February, he was going around pick 300, picks 270, 290, to whatever. You're paying nothing to get him. And so I'm not taking him as an ace. I'm taking him as an upside SP 5 or 6. And I think he's one of my favorite picks to round out my rotation because the upside is so high. And if I have to drop him, so be it. I'm not spending that kind of capital.
It's a great call. I'm looking at it now. I think I might be putting him over Shane Baz. It is very interesting. I have Ryan Weathers at 54, and I think the innate early talent is there. There is a higher potential for a full season of just a Holly, right? A 23% strikeout rate guy with good enough ratios, right? In Kodai Senga. So I could be putting him above Weathers in that Zac Gallen tier, who also Gallen I'm also really leaning into right now, Eric. Seeing him sit 94 and be the opening day starter is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because Gallen was 93 and then 91 the past two spring training seasons. So that's 2024 and 25. And now he's at 94 with the ability to go opening day, as opposed to the concern we had of Gallen not being ready because he was signed a little bit later. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I put out a tweet, I want to say 2 months ago, about Jose Soriano and how bad of a situation it is with the Angels. And that if you can find the best defenses before the season starts, you will have a huge advantage because teams that have the best defenses also happen to have the best pitchers, right? It's just lower ERAs because of it. We saw the Cubs last year with that. We saw the Arizona Diamondbacks have a lot of success in the past too. And Mike Petriello put out the article about the Arizona Diamondbacks outfield, just in general. The outfield is one of the best places for outfielders to defend. It's easiest for them. You have that, and then you have an elite defense in the infield. I think that Zac Gallen is just so ready to be it's on this 1-year deal to destroy. Like, I do not think he's going to be dropped in your leagues when you draft him. So I have him and Senga kind of in my head the same, and I don't have him in the list as the same. So I should be changing that. I mean, Gallen did just do this over the weekend after the list came out. He increased that velocity again. So that's where my head is. But yeah, Kodai Senga is a phenomenal call, and I regret I didn't actually circle him for Doug Dennis. So you better get him.
Yeah, I'm with you on Gallen having a bounce back. I wrote about it in an article over on NBC Sports. I don't know that I'm in on it being like you're not going to drop him, but I like my concerns prior to the really bad year last year where like he still gives up a lot of hard contacts. I don't know that that's necessarily going to change, but I agree that we're going to get back to something that's solid and usable. You know, there was a time where he was like an SP2 in fantasy. I don't think we're getting there, but like, is he an SP4? Like, is he
right?
Like, you have him right around Matthew Boyd. Like, yeah, I see
That's
that.
It.
Right.
Yeah.
That I see where that goes. Right under Senga is somebody up 19 spots. It's Tanner Bibbe. I'm curious if you saw something in him this spring that had you move him up, or this is just a little bit of a course correction between, yeah, he frustrates you, and yeah, last year was bad, but he also has been solid in his MLB career, and he's probably going to go back to being like fine. Like,
yeah. So a few things at play here. One, tier 10 is 60 through 70. So it's 11 spots, right? And that's really the cliff of injured players. So either you're going to be ahead of it or you're going to be behind it. And Bibbe is literally the last one before it. So that 19 is including the 11 of being above that injury tier. So it makes it look a little more drastic. Same with Senga a bit. But the one underneath it is like Ryan Nelson, Luis Castillo, Merrill Kelly, Zach Eflin, Will Warren. And I felt that Bibbe has a ceiling that you might be able to identify faster than those. So you might as well favor him more in the next tier. And that's why he's here. Now, Bibbe, my whole story with Bibbe is ridiculous. Of just like, I didn't believe that he was good for 2 years. And finally I said, fine, it is what it is. And then he's bad, of course. But it was really the slider / cutter, whatever you want to call it. It kind of went back and forth between 24 and 25. That was not the effective pitch that he needed it to be last year. The changeup was still kind of there, but the command is always wonky and whatever. In his last spring training start was the first time I saw Tanner Bibbe actually have like wrangling that cutter. It was all down in glove side against right-handers. He had good pitch separation, and it does feel to me as if Tanner Bibbe has embraced the fact that he needs to learn this and like make sure this is better. So I'm going to give him some ray of hope here, like a ray of light that like maybe actually Tanner Bibbe has solved this problem. I didn't really see it at the end of September too much, despite the amazing performances he had. But this was like, all right, it was a bad lineup. And I don't want to say, oh, he had 6 Ks and all these whiffs and all that. No. I'm just looking at the movement of it, which was still a little bit varied, but fine. And the velocity and the location of these pitches. And it was there. So, okay, Tanner, like you're showing me a way that this works. I'll put you up.
Yep. I appreciate that. I want to go to this tier. You have tier 12. It's a lot of guys who were unranked and then moved into the rankings. I assume it's because they have spots in the rotation. The first one is Kyle Harrison, who, with Quinn Priester's injury and now Brandon Woodruff also being questionable for opening day, it feels like Kyle Harrison is in the rotation because it actually feels like if Woodruff actually isn't ready, and right now it's trending like Woodruff won't be ready, Kyle Harrison is, I believe, actually the 4th. And then it's either like Logan Henderson or Aaron Ashby who they're stretching out, or, guys like that. So Kyle Harrison has kind of a pretty safe opening day job. You also moved Luis Heel in. He is also, we know he was in the Yankees rotation, but now I think your rankings are more geared towards like, now that I know these guys are in, I'm putting them over guys who are not in the rotation, because you can't draft guys who aren't in the rotation at this point in the season.
Okay, so a lot of things here. One of the main things I start doing now is I start hyper focusing on early matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And Will Warren and Luis Heel are going to Seattle for their first game. So I'm not necessarily saying that I'm down for those. I think Luis Heel's look pretty bad, honestly, this spring. I also recognize that Luis Heel can be very, very good. He can throw those four-seamers for strikes upstairs and get whiffs on them, even though he hasn't really this spring. He also can be in a situation where the slider and changeup get strikes too, and can be very unhittable. Wasn't the case yesterday, or 2 days ago. That's beside the point. So I have Luis Heel at 80 because of just that. If you are drafting starters at this point, at least have someone you're going to start the first time they go, as opposed to a questionable one you're hoping to figure out in a game that you wouldn't start them in, right? Will Warren's the same way. So 76, he's in the next tier. I have more faith in Will Warren being good. Now, the Brewers situation, it's interesting you bring that up, because there's a pitcher on that's not on the list here who, after their weekend performance, I would have on the list. And I have some of these, like there's Mick, Abel, and Parker Messick, who we don't know yet still. Right. And I think in the last podcast, we might have talked about this, where I'm having them here because I might as well take the chance. And then I know I can drop them. And I'd rather take the chance on them being in the rotation than someone else who will be in the rotation, but I don't know if it's any good. Right. It's the same kind of deal. But I like those guys who are not in the rotation right now, so more than the others. So I'll take that. That's why they are there. We'll see what happens after Zebby did well. It seemed like Mick, Abel wouldn't be in it, but who knows? Parker Messick, though, should. Logan Allen's been terrible. And you can see Parker Messick. Parker Messick's going up in my ranks. Yeah. He's going, I'm tempted to put him in the 50s. I'm not even kidding.
The only thing that's in the back of my head is that he's still a rookie. They get another year of control if they keep him in the minor leagues for the start of the season, and it's the Guardians, and it just seems like something they'll do.
Or they could get the rookie of the year.
Sure.
Kevin
if they think that he can win that, sure.
Yeah. So it's a very good point, and then I would drop him. Fine. I mean, I'm not, like I said, if he gets a rotation spot,
right,
he's going up there, fine. So with the Brewers, Kyle Harrison is like the 2.
Right.
No Quinn Priester, no Woodruff. So you have Misiorowski as the 1. Logan Henderson's status is in question. And then you have Harrison and Chad Patrick. And then let's say it's Henderson, that's 4. And then you have this 5th spot of Robert Gasser or Brandon Sprout. And Sprout. And Sprout, this is something that I think is actually very interesting. He went directly after Jacob Misiorowski in that game. And you're thinking, well, Nick, doesn't that indicate that he's not in the rotation? Nay. Misiorowski is going to be opening day. Yes. And opening day is often on the same timeline as the SP5. The reason for that is that they didn't start yesterday, so they're fresh. Right. They're often used as a bullpen piece at that time. And there's always at least one off day between that game and what would be the 5th start. So it's very common actually to see that. And I remember so many times every single year on opening day, I get these tweets or whatever about, hey, I thought this guy wasn't going to be a reliever. He's the SP5. And I'm saying, like, guys, it's just his bullpen day. It's like he's still going to do it. Often see that like 25 starts, 24, 24 starts, 25 games, that kind of thing, right? Because of that. So seeing Sprout go over 65 pitches and have increased velocity, have a new cutter that is looking good, going cutter curve to lefties, going sweeper sinker to righties. Like there's a changeup in there too. It's a great situation to take up. Oh man, I like this so much more than Gasser, who I haven't really been impressed by. I've barely even seen him this spring.
Yeah,
So
Gasser
yeah.
hasn't looked great. It's the like I think that Sproat is the most likely is the one we would like to see get the job
Mhm.
the most because of the upside. I do have to point out that they've stretched out Aaron Ashby as a starter. Ashby has a minor league option. Ashby could just be in the bullpen, but it also could be a situation where they're like, okay, this guy's 27 years old. At some point, he's going to get his final shot in the rotation.
Mm.
And the fact that they've stretched him out in the spring as a starter's workload has me thinking this may be the last shot for Aaron Ashby. They may say, okay, this wasn't the plan, but injuries have made this the plan. This is your last chance to be a starter for us, or you're just going to be a reliever for us.
Right. So it could be my answer to that is long relief for the most part.
Yeah.
And
But they
watching and
have
following
DL
Aaron
Hall for
Ashby has
long.
just
They have
been
DL Hall for long relief right now.
well, they do have that, but he had to be more stretched out for the WBC, keep in mind. So that makes a little sense in that regard. But with Ashby, I think he's not made for a rotation as much as I
I
was so amped
I
in
agree.
2021. I know you agree with me. Um, I would be surprised if actually that happened, but it does make sense what you're saying from a mentality standpoint, like giving him his dues a bit.
Yeah.
So pay attention to this. If your
Yeah.
draft is like next week, a couple days before, we will know. We will have a good understanding of this situation, and do not overlook the possibility of Brandon Sproat being that number 5 for the Brewers.
I'll just point out Dustin May is on here.
Yes.
He's 97th. His velocity is up. He's gonna
At 97. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's probably actually. I was thinking about
Like
that. It's
98.
close. He's gonna start for the Cardinals. Look, the whiffs are still super inconsistent. They're still not really
Yeah.
there. Some starts they are, some starts they're not. That's why he's 97. I assume he's in the rotation. He's flashing high velocity. He's another year removed from injury. Sure, why not? Like, give it a shot at the end of your drafts. But the radar gun is not like the be all end all. Another of his teammate who went from off the list to unranked and is slightly higher, you have at 93rd, is Matthew Liberatore. I have been really intrigued by him as one of my like last round picks because the velocity is back to where it was in the middle of last year. His velocity had tapered off over the summer last year, his first full year in the big league. So that's not a shock that there was like a stretch over the summer where he seemed pretty worn down. So the velocity is there, but also he has modified his changeup to be a kick changeup because he really struggled with his changeup last year. So we know the kick changeup we understand is like, think of it as kind of like a hybrid changeup splitter. It has a little bit more vertical movement and is kind of a little bit more for swing and miss than just as like a get me over strike pitch. But as we've talked about a lot on the show, a left-handed pitcher like Liberatore with an impactful changeup is really valuable. And the fact that this changeup isn't like, oh my God, this is the sickest pitch he's ever, but it was not really an offering for him last year. And so adding it as even something that is a solid pitch he can throw, I'm not saying it makes him like somebody you're like looking at a major breakout, but it takes him from somebody who wouldn't really have sniffed your rosters in a 12-team league last year to maybe being somebody who like you actually wind up holding for an extended period of time when he just goes on a really strong stretch. And, you know, he's not like a set it and forget it type of starter, but is somebody who you have on your roster more often than not and is pitching relatively well for the year.
You know, one of my favorite things about Matthew Liberatore, it's the fact that he starts opening day in all likelihood. And it's opening day in St. Louis against the Rays. So if you are debating him or an SB4 or 5 in your 12-teamer, why not grab Liberatore and start opening day and see what you got? I mean, at the very least, yes, his next start would be against the Mets. Don't love that one, but it's still at least in St. Louis. And that's kind of the conversation I want to have with everybody thinking about these last picks, because you're better off generally going for a guy opening weekend. Liberatore can be that swatch life, right? And when he's at his peak, it's that changeup away with the cutter in, a good curveball, fastball's well located. I don't like the oscillation of velocity that we normally see from Liberatore. I don't like that last year he threw his sinker away to lefties. And I think he's trying to go inside to them right now in the spring, which is fun. Thank you. But it can be very, very boring. It's a good situation again, though, right? So it's more of a 15-teamer play than I would say is a 12. You make a great point, Eric. It's kind of like I think of Miles Michaelis, of where you picked him up on 22 or something, and he just didn't let go. You're like, how is this so good? I don't get it, and whatever. Maybe it was 23, but it could work out well. I have a little more hope for Dustin May, just because he is embracing that cutter more and inside to left-handers. It looks like he actually has different attacks now, as opposed to just settling with the sinker and the sweeper and hoping for the best. The four-seamer is very flat, and he is trying to use that with good intent upstairs now, as opposed to one moment last year where he stopped throwing sinkers and just threw four-seamers, and I'm going, what is going on right now? It's also a much nicer situation for him. Instead of LA or Boston, which is a lot of pressure, Dustin May can just kind of coast. I'm serious. This is a huge deal for him, I think.
I know, on a poor team. We should note, your thing in the past has always been the Cardinals have a really good infield defense. They have 3 new starters on the infield. I mean, Nolan Gorman has started for them in the past.
This is a great point, Eric.
Arenado's
gone.
He's not a new starter, but he is a full-time starter, most likely at third base now. Alec Burleson is going to be a full-time starter at first base. He has played there before, obviously. And then JJ Weatherholt is likely going to be the opening day second baseman, a position that he is still learning because he was not a natural second baseman. And so we don't really know what their infield defense will be like. And for somebody, and we know Mason Wynn is great at short, whatever, full stop. But for somebody like Dustin May, who will get a lot of ground balls, it's just something to keep in mind that, like, this may not be the elite defense of the past.
Thank you. Great call there, Eric. Now there is another potential swatch, and Eric is going to laugh, and I'll tell you who this is that I'm still kind of excited about after this break. All right, Eric.
I know who
you're at your draft.
I know
I was there. I was sitting there, and I was just whispering in your ear. It's a 15-team mixed, and I'm just telling you over and over again, why have you not drafted Anthony K?
And I told you because again, in Tout Wars, unlimited IL spots. So I was choosing to use my final spots on guys like Justin Steele and Jared Jones, who I will put on my IL, because there will be a run of fab before the start of the season where I and Frank Stamfel and anybody else who you told to pick up Anthony K, which is everybody.
It became a joke, though. They don't believe me anymore.
We'll probably make a run at picking him up. Now, you'll tell everybody why.
Yes.
I should just note, Anthony K was not like a top prospect, but he was a prospect of note when he was coming up, first with the Mets, I believe, and then with the Blue Jays. He was thought of as a guy who could turn into a very reliable back end of the rotation starting pitcher. It didn't work out. He went overseas, but a lot of guys go overseas and they tinker with some things and make pitch mix changes and find new approaches. Anthony K actually had some moments in the big leagues before he went overseas where he was was pretty effective in long relief as a multi-inning relief guy. And so this isn't like hey, this guy was terrible and then did nothing and came back and looks different. And so I know you'll tell us about some of the changes. And then I do think this is a lot about who he gets right to begin the season.
Yeah. So Anthony K, when we saw him in 2023, was 94-95 from the left side with a slider. And that's about it. Okay. It wasn't very effective of a slider, but All right, decent fastball. This is the fun for me of spring training. Is like I need to. All right, you were the guy that went. I just need to know what you're doing. And Anthony K is a southpaw, sitting 95, 96. He threw enough pitches, like it was 60 pitches, whatever it was, 4 innings, with a dotted kick change to right-handers. He didn't have this pitch before.
Mm-hmm.
He also, he's doing the favorite things. He's doing sinkers inside to lefties. He has a slider sweeper. It's okay. It's probably his weakest asset is the breaking ball to lefties, which should be the easiest one, but for whatever reason it is. But get this, Eric. He throws a 91 mile per hour cutter inside to righties and he dots it.
You love it. You love it.
And it's just, I sat there because I on Friday I did like my crazy ridiculous. I have to get everything out. My gosh, I canceled everything. I like put my phone on silent for the entire day as I did 3 of these roundups into the list. And then I had to meet you guys in the city at like 7:30 or whatever it was, 8 o'clock. And I stopped because I just was like, what is this? This is way too good for what we expect. And I look at the White Sox and it's like, it's Shane Smith, it's Sean Burke, Davis Martin. Okay. And I'm like, there's K, there's Cannon, there's Fede back, like Anthony K might be the best starter on this team. I know Shane Smith, like, sure, but it might actually be Anthony K. And awesome. I'm not saying in 12 teamers, he is someone I'm drafting. I'm still I'm going to hold off. He's likely going to be the 4th or the 5th, as opposed to like the 1, 2, or 3, which would mean that Anthony K would get the White Sox. Sorry, the White Sox would be going to Miami for their first game, first game in that series. So for their 4th game or 5th game or 6th game, right? So that means Anthony K would get the Marlins, which I do understand is better as an offense now.
Right.
Jacob Mossy, we get Kyle Stowers, we got Ramirez, whatever. I still think that's a good matchup. It is an SP5 or 4. It's later on. It's more of a 15-team play, but the thing is, in 15 teamers, you're trying to find guys that go like 6 innings consistently and are not killing you. And yeah, that would be Anthony K. I don't think the White Sox are going to be like, whoa. Dude who just went volume in KBO. No, you're not allowed to go deep into this game. We got to protect you like you're 24 and a prospect. Not the case. So all of that makes it for an ultimate sleeper to me in your deeper leagues and someone I'm paying attention to in 12s.
Yeah, I love tidbits like that. I agree with you that this is more of like a 15-team league thing. And I understand your full reasoning on doing it. I am more interested in somebody you have in the same tier. And I think this might end our risers into this. And then there's one other guy I want to talk about to wrap us up. You have Justin Wrobleski in here. Yeah. He is now up at 91st. He was unranked. I assume, because we've talked about this, we know Blake Snell is starting on the IL. Roki Sasaki was given the chance to start in the rotation. They have not said Roki Sasaki won't be in the rotation.
They haven't said he is either.
Right, exactly. But this is a bet on Roki Sasaki hasn't looked entirely good.
No.
And Justin Wrobleski has looked pretty good. And I know we made a lot out of Roki Sasaki pitching well in the World Series for the Dodgers, but Justin Wrobleski also pitched well out of the bullpen for the Dodgers last year. And he has more of an MLB track record than Sasaki. And so if Wrobleski is in the rotation, how interested are you?
I did not love the game over the weekend for Wrobleski. Velocity was down to 95. We've seen him up to like 97 plus.
Right.
And I understand, okay, you're getting a little more stretched out. You're being a little more cautious with it. Okay. I put a little bit of weight into this of he's fighting for this spot. So I wouldn't expect the velocity to be lower. Maybe they actually have told him something too. It's not out of the question. I'm still interested. SP5 and Dodgeritis and all of that. And it's not one of those that is he gets the rotation spot, and the first start is going to be 6 innings, 8 Ks, 1 walk. Like it's just you don't expect that. It's in there. It is theoretically, like I can see it all coming together for him. I'm just not as jazzed about it as I want to be. And really, I look at this entire 86 to 100. I should mention one of the more surprising rankings, I think, is my Joey Cantillo at 94. Cantillo.
I'm just ignoring that.
And yeah, you are. Do you understand why it is? I know you don't agree with it, but do you understand why he's at 94, Eric?
Sure. I mean, is it based on something you're seeing in spring?
I mean, it's based on the fact that Cantillo, I mean, sure, in the spring, it's just been more of it, is a Vulcan change and nothing else for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I would push back on nothing else, but I agree that it's a Vulcan change and an inconsistent rest of the arsenal with a fastball that is bad. Extension only, like a fastball that if it wasn't for extension
is the other thing.
Would be a really poor fastball and is maybe a mediocre fastball because of the extension.
Well, I mean, it gets destroyed too, though. Like its ICR is like through the roof. Mm-hmm. And that tells it's the old Jeremy Hellickson problem. I used to call him the devil because he would have a 0 run game. You'd bring him into your village and then he'd burn it down with 6 runs the next time because Hellickson had an absurdly good changeup and batters would cheat so much on it for the fastball because it was such a hittable fastball that they would always miss on the changeup. And that's kind of what's going on with Cantillo. He does have a good curveball that he has found more strikes with than I expected. I can't say I'm as bullish as others are about the curveball being that third option.
Yeah, listen, I hear you. I moved him, and my rankings will be coming out at some point later this week. I moved him from like 59th down to 76th. I'm still a little higher on him than you are, but we have him kind of in like the same general range of pitchers. Like I now have him closer to Liberatore and Mick, Abel and Kyle Harrison and Braxton Ashcraft, where I had previously had him closer to like Ryan Weathers and guys like that. I'm no longer up there.
There's also something else at play here, which isn't really understood just seeing the ranking. And I would actually say to you, I think that Joey Cantillo is going to have more beneficial starts, like the raw number of starts that are great and you're excited about than a lot of the other guys who are ahead of him. Mm-hmm. However, I don't think we'll be in a situation this year where we trust Joey Cantillo.
Sure.
And there's a higher risk of having a hipster here, a heading-inducing pitcher stifling the entire roster, who is going to oscillate back and forth, and you won't know if you should hold or not.
Sure.
That is the root of this. The other guys I have, I'm saying, look, test it out early, and then when it goes south, you can quickly jump off the boat. And Cantillo, I don't think will be able to know. And that's a problem to me. That is something I try to avoid as much as possible. That's why Jack Leiter is down here, right? Like Jack Leiter, I don't believe I'm going to know what he's going to turn into. But if Braxton Ashcraft actually does the things we want him to do, I'm okay with that. Cody Ponce maybe actually is putting this together and looks like that stable guy with the Jays now. Okay, right?
So that was what I want to actually talk to you about. I'll jump in because there were two situations I wanted to talk to you about. The Cody Ponce thing got a little more interesting with the Jose Barrios elbow inflammation because even though Barrios was, people were souring on him and there was this idea that he, was no longer the guy from the, that we had gotten accustomed to, he was still going to start for the Blue Jays. Now he's sidelined with elbow inflammation. So Cody Ponce now isn't even like on the fringe of the rotation. He's like their SP4. He's locked into the rotation and they are going to need him to go like every 5 days. So I do want to hear your thoughts on Cody Ponce. And then I also want to hear your thoughts on the final spot, because it's easy to say, well, Trey Yesavage is just going to be the fifth starter. But they have said all along that they want to slow play his innings to start the year. he is still not built up beyond like 35 pitches. They have another guy who started for them last year for an extended period of time and was actually pretty good as a starter. And so I'm curious if you think Yesavage is a fifth starter, if you think Eric Lauer is a fifth starter, or if you think we get some piggyback situation between those two guys, which might make neither one of them really usable for the season.
Just make everyone unhappy.
Yeah.
All right. So
you could start with Cody Ponce, though.
Sure. Yeah, Cody Ponce, it doesn't really change for me because he was in that rotation from day one, in my view, as that volume guy. I'm still in belief that Jose Barrios was starting to fade as a real option for them. And I also get the sense that the signing of Max Scherzer was with the understanding that Ponce was already in it. Like Ponce already filled the void that Max Scherzer was leaving, right? Initially. And they're like, okay, cool. We have Ponce. Oh, we need a little bit extra now because of the Savage situation, because of the Barrios thing. Okay, cool. We're good. We want Scherzer now too. And Ponce is good, but not like, I'm not sold yet. It's a variety of pitches. The 94 plus 94, 95 fastball. He's not quite the 95, 96 that I would want to see, but all right. It's a curveball and a sweeper and a changeup. And I need to see him actually like locate it and execute a proper start before I can really sign that one and say that is now a Holly. He is a top 60 guy. I love this. So that's why I'm a little hesitant on Ponce. At the same time, like I look at the whole trajectory of the offseason. This is kind of how it goes, where the guys that are the international signings coming over who have, we need to focus on, it's Ryan Weiss, it's Cody Ponce, it was Sasaki last year, there's Amai now, and there was also Foster Griffin and Drew Anderson and whatnot, and Anthony Kay. And now that we finally get some raw data and grasp their situations and their respective teams, we can then put this proper label, and now there's more attention on it. So Cody Ponce is kind of what I think he was. Same with Ryan Weiss, not with Anthony Kay, and that's why he's a part of it too. But really, they're the same kind of idea of, all right, they're going to be getting innings for their teams. That's cool. They're both around, all three of them around 95 miles per hour. And they have that opportunity potential that makes it worthy to be at least on your radar, if not taking a shot on them late. Because that's the first requisite of being worthy is opportunity. If you don't care if you're dominant in 4 innings, goodbye. So there's that. Okay. Now with the Jays situation, if I'm the Blue Jays, which I'm not, is I would say, okay, Yesavage, you're going, but it's 3 innings, right?
Yes.
I'm very, very, very adamant about not start, stop with guys. Make it smooth. Make them consistently doing the thing, but just not as much. Making it less intense. It's like if you're weight training, you don't do it for intense for a month and then not for a month. You do it routinely every X amount of days. You do it constantly, right? You don't overdo it. That's what I would do. And when I first saw the Max Scherzer signing, I thought actually he would be more limited initially. He's not. He's over 60 now. And I thought this is perfect.
Pitches, not years old, people. Pitches.
Well, I don't know. Debatable about that one. And my interpretation was, okay, you have Scherzer, you have Barrios, and you have Savage. And you can kind of do a dance of someone is piggybacking somewhere whenever needed, right? Then you have your Cease, your Gosman, you have your Ponce just pitching normally. Eric Lauer is a phenomenal point, though, because he has been doing 50 plus pitches, I believe, in the last one.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed personally, but it's possible to do that. He is the long reliever right now for the squad. I don't know how it all goes. How I'm doing this from a fantasy perspective is not touching Lauer, not touching Barrios.
Right.
Scherzer, sweet. I think that's actually surprising value because he's still a good pitcher. Ponce, sweet, fine. Take that flyer by all means. Let's see what happens. And Yesavage, I'm curious where he falls because I think that by April 20th, you're going to be thrilled. And we've seen this constantly where it's not an injury, that these guys, yeah, sure, they fine, it's April 12th, April 20th, whatever. Sure, you have to make sure that it's fine for 2 weeks, but you're going to be happy with this on April 1st or May 1st, rather. So that's kind of where I am, the whole picture, Eric.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm not out on Yesavage. I have expressed my desire to not draft him like inside the top 40 starters or whatever. I think that early on it was like, hey, Yesavage is in that Chase Burns, Cam Schlittler, Bubba Chandler, Nolan McClain conversation. And I think he has fallen out of that conversation and should because of maybe not the Chase Burns part of the conversation.
Yeah, I was about to say, who do you want more, Chase Burns or Yesavage?
For similar reasons. That's a really good question because if they're both limited to start the season, Chase Burns is limited because of something that might actually concern them with an injury, and Yesavage is not. He's just limited because they want to monitor his innings. So yeah, that is a tough one. I think I would probably still draft Burns if I had to choose them like at the same exact pick, but Chase Burns is never going to fall. Like Yesavage will fall.
Don't say never, Eric.
Well,
there's
it's
10
very
days
unlikely
to get
that
news
Chase Burns
here.
falls. My point about Trey Yesavage was, if I'm drafting him, I'm drafting him understanding that I'm probably not going to be able to use him for most of the first month of the season. And if that works for where I've drafted him, then great. But he may throw 3 or 4 innings. And I know people just say, well, Berrios is hurt, so now they can't do that. And it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
Because first of all, they have him on a ramp-up plan. They're not going to accelerate that ramp-up plan and speed him up so that he can be ready for the start of the season. He's too valuable to them, and what he means for them in August and September and October is too valuable. They're going to keep him on the same ramp-up plan. It's what's best for his health. It's what's best for the team. Also, if they think it's what's best for him, an injury to Jose Berrios is not going to change that.
No.
They would keep the piggyback strategy with Eric Lauer. Maybe Yesavage gets to 5 innings a little bit sooner than he would have gotten to 5 innings before, but still on a modest ramp up. They're not kicking this into overdrive right now to get him ready for the start of the season because they don't want to risk injury to him after dealing with injuries to other people. And so, yeah, Yesavage could still get you 3 or 4 really good innings his first 3 times out. But I'm probably not starting him in leagues if I'm only going to get 4 innings out of him. There's
right.
Just not a lot.
I mean, if you have no restrictions, I would still throw him for 3-4 innings. But I mean, if you are making a decision between that start or someone else's start, I'll go with someone else's start. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. And then I want to go back to one last situation.
No more Trey Yesavage, guys. We're done with this.
We're done with Yesavage. We're done with Lauer. But I do like Lauer if you're drafting like multi-inning relievers at the end of your draft, because I think there's a real chance he piggybacks for the first month.
Maybe that's why I replaced Chase Burns with Tout Wars.
yeah, maybe. Somebody who went down 15 spots in your rankings was Shane McClanahan.
Yeah.
And
Noah Cameron.
And then on Sunday, Shane McClanahan struck out 7 in 3 2/3. And there was a lot of chatter online about, look at what Shane McClanahan did. And so I wanted to just end with you addressing that, because he's such a high profile name and people got so excited after that start yesterday on Sunday. And I know you did your rankings before that start. So I just wanted you to be able to express like how you felt about that start and if you think it meaningfully changes your expectation of what we're going to get from McClanahan.
Oh, man. Here's the thing. I go back and forth in my head because it's very easy to compare Shane McClanahan to Spencer Strider from last year. And I want to make some very important distinctions. One, Spencer Strider's failure last season was a product of being rushed, in my opinion, by Atlanta. They were in a dire situation where so many starters were hurt, and they were quickly falling out of contention for the NL East in an absolute downfall. They needed something to save them, and they thought that Spencer Strider could do it. They likely would have had him for a couple weeks more in rehab, and I think that truly messed them up. But second, I think this is the more important one, is that Shane McClanahan was not fully defined by his four-seamer before he had surgery. He was a 3 to 4 pitch pitcher with his best pitch being the changeup. The changeup as a lefty, what do you know? An elite swatch, right?
Right.
And at 94.7, I believe it was yesterday. So we've seen 3 games in 93 and then 194, then 94.7. It is a little worrisome that you're not going to see the 96, 97, 98 kind of Shane McClanahan, same kind of vein of Spencer Strider, but he's more of a pitcher. He's more of a well-rounded arsenal than Strider was, who was just fastballs are just defining everything. And then, oh, you thought it was a fastball. Nope, it's a slider. And that's the game, right? And that's it. While McClanahan got these strikeouts because he threw good changeups to a bad lineup and a lot of right-handers. And that should always work. That should work against AAA batters for a lot of lefties if they're able to do a changeup like that. So my perspective of this is Shane McClanahan can still execute a left-handed changeup at 94, 95. And that's good. That's good, right? It's not fun to see the guy under 95 after 3 games. I'm a little worried about that. I am a little more inclined than I am, I think, at the negative 15. But I am not ready to say, like, no, he's back. He's top 40 or anything like that. I can't get behind sub 95 at the moment.
So compare him in your head to Wheeler, because they both have flashed. Zack Wheeler and Shane McClanahan have both flashed fantasy ace upside. McClanahan is younger, but McClanahan has also been out for longer. McClanahan is going to start the year in the rotation. Wheeler is not going to start the year in the rotation. So there's a world where you just say all of these things kind of like level out, and maybe I just put them back to back. It's like I probably, if healthy, I probably bank on Wheeler being a little better at this point because I haven't seen McClanahan in a while, but Wheeler is more fresh off the surgery and may need more time to get back to who he is. So McClanahan may actually be more quote unquote ready, but is Wheeler's upside higher? Like, it's a very confusing situation in terms of like how I would approach them. But I wonder if like the lazy approach is like, I just going to put them together. And if I get to a point in the draft where I'm like ready to roll the dice, maybe I roll the dice.
Well, what's really fortunate for me is that once the season starts, I don't have to. I just remove Wheeler.
Right.
Yeah, that's really difficult because I can give tiebreakers many ways. I can say one guy is starting, one guy is not.
Mm-hmm.
And that should go to McClanahan. I could say, well, one guy hasn't pitched since 23, and the other one was elite in August of 25. Right. And okay, well, that goes to Wheeler then. One guy is on the IL, which means I have an open roster spot in April, and the other one doesn't. That goes to Wheeler. Well, I can find out if I like McClanahan and move on faster with him. So that goes to McClanahan. I can't tell you. And what I will say is that we'll know before the season starts, because Wheeler should get one game in the spring. That's what their plan is right now, is saying one Cactus game before it all ends. And we'll have data from that, hopefully with Garrett Cole too. And we'll have another game from Shane McClanahan as well. And right now, go with your gut. But yeah, I probably would put them back to back if I had to do it today.
I'm thinking about doing that. We'll see. My rankings are going to come out later this week, and maybe I'll do it.
Mine's coming out again Thursday. I have Thursday, before the draft weekend. Again, we're updating the Ultimate Draft Guide again on Friday because it's another draft weekend. There's more information. And then my final ranking before the season starts, where I remove all of them from their draft spot and put them into their own table, is on Wednesday next week. So
exciting. We're getting close to it.
We are
getting
so
down
close.
to the wire. We are close. Next week, MLB opening day.
Unbelievable.
It's going to be exciting. I would not be a NBC Sports Company man if I didn't mention that Paul Skeens versus the Mets is on NBC and Peacock to start the year. It's going to be very exciting. But
that's unfortunate.
It's a great game. I'm excited for it. Maybe I'll get to go. Who knows? Depending on what work does on that day.
I don't have Peacock.
Well, it's on NBC and Peacock.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's on both. You can watch it on NBC. You don't have to,
YouTube
you don't
TV,
have Peacock, but Peacock is very worth watching. Just for the record. But yes, you can watch it on NBC. That's gonna do it for us for today. We will have at least one more before opening day starts.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll go over some more stuff to help you guys with your draft.
Eric, what we'll do is that we will do our own board bet episode.
Love it. Okay.
We'll figure out some things like bowl predictions, and then we'll have some board bets. I think I want to have a really fun one with you entering the season, the last place that we get to plant our flag. And we'll do that next week, guys.
I'm excited for it. Ready to go. Yeah. I'll start getting some ideas ready.
Beautiful.
Well, outside my window, I hear the rain picking up, and we're supposed to get 50-mile-an-hour winds later today. So it's time to hunker down. I am Eric Samulski, the Pelican.
I'm Nick Pollack, the Lion.
And I'm going to just, find a nice cozy blanket to curl up under on this cold night.